Good morning. My name is Mike Kelly, and I'm the Executive Director of the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. And I'm very pleased to invite you all to this morning's event, showcasing strategies to connect Baltimore's opportunity youth to employment opportunity. For those that may not be familiar with our organization, the Metropolitan Council is the council of governments for the Baltimore region, serving Baltimore City and the 5 surrounding counties. Our charge is to convene and coordinate regional planning in a variety of policy areas, including transportation, housing, and the focus of this morning's event, workforce development. I'm proud to say that a portion of the research and analysis we're going to be hearing about today was funded by BMC through a grant from the Opportunity Collaborative Program. That program took a look at a regional approach to connecting housing, transportation, and workforce development in an effort to reduce disparities. I think it should go without saying, too, that the Opportunity Collaborative would not have been possible without a lot of the partners we have here in the room today. And we couldn't be more proud of the work that we're starting to see coming out of that research effort. Just a few housekeeping items. We are recording today's discussion. We will be putting it up on YouTube. If you'd like to share it with colleagues, we certainly want you to do that. We think there's an important message here today. Second, and probably more important than YouTube, the restrooms are available in the lobby. And lastly, if you need anything at all, please let myself or one of our staff know. We want to make this as nice an experience as possible today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sophie Dejanay, who is not Patrick McCarthy, but I think is just as good. Sophie is the director of the Baltimore Civic Site for the Annie E. Casey Foundation, where she oversees the organization's grant making in East Baltimore and its investments, particularly in the East Baltimore Regional Initiative. Revitalization Initiative, I'm sorry. Prior to joining the foundation, Sophie served as the chief of staff for Mayor Rawlings Blake and was a partner at Ballard Spahr, LLP. Having worked closely with Sophie during the Opportunity Collaborative, I can attest to her commitment to serving youth, families, and communities in Baltimore. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Sophie Dejanay.
Good morning. Good morning again, and thank you, Mike. Indeed, I am not Patrick McCarthy. I appreciate your kind words. I will share with you that Patrick is out sick today, and in my 5 years at the Annie E. Casey Foundation, I don't recall him ever missing an all-staff meeting, which we have monthly, and he missed yesterday's. So clearly, I know he'd rather be here, but thank you for letting me pinch hit for him. It is great to see so many of our partners in the room together. The Annie E. Casey Foundation does do a fair amount of investing in East Baltimore, but I also want to remind us all that we do a fair amount of work citywide, and I know that many of you know just that. All that being said, thanks for having me again. But not far from here, a young man is starting another day without a steady job and likely few prospects for finding one. He's not in school. He's not in a training program. Many youth in his community are likely experiencing the same challenges, and maybe he'll spend a good portion of his day with them. Across the city, 1 in 5 of our young people are neither working nor in school. 38% of them without a high school degree or a GED, with an average of 7% grade level reading proficiency and on average a 5% math proficiency. All these outcomes affecting African Americans in particular in disproportionate fashion. 18,000 young people disconnected from the workforce, from education, from a reliable income, from opportunity. Some might say without hope. But I think we're here today because there is hope. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at some of those slides, and I don't know who produced the slide deck, but there is a lot of hope in the voices of youth themselves in particular. Across our nation, 5.5 million young people have no clear path to opportunity. Many are parents themselves, 20%. And their children will face steep odds of success from birth. Think of the potential that will be lost today, tomorrow, and in the years to come. think of the long-term effects on our children, their families, their children, their communities, and as a matter of fact, our city, if we don't help. On top of the tragedy of lost potential, together we must face the sense of injustice and shame that comes with understanding the roots of this deep disconnection. These roots go back to generations of public and private decision-making processes and policies driven by racial bigotry, bias, and exploitation. These challenges that our young people face and that our city faces go back years and can be traced to a number of things. We know them to include residential segregation, disinvestment in communities, hiring discrimination, misaligned investments in transportation, and on through a list of systemic and structural failures that lead to the present day's problems. Indeed, what we learn in these reports is not news. These reports are encouraging us and activating us to pay attention to the data and let the data drive our decisions. Today's call to action should begin with the recognition that racism, the negative treatment of people based solely on their race, is at the core of poverty and inequality. And this call to action on behalf of our young people is about one of the many efforts we must take on to truly reverse the legacy of our history. And we would argue one of the most critical steps. As we consider our efforts, we also think it's a very good time for us to take up the work of building strong pipelines to success for our youth. First, Baltimore as a region fares very well on most economic markers: income, wealth, job growth. Our challenge is the distribution of income and the concentration of poverty. Second, the city's poised to see increased demand for qualified workers. Small, medium, and large employers struggle to hire and retain workers in so-called middle-skill positions. Demand for well-trained positions will continue to grow in a number of sectors. Third, employers here in Baltimore City, anchor institutions, universities, hospitals, and businesses have recently and very explicitly committed to hiring our local residents as their employees. We have an opportunity to act with urgency to ensure that our youth are prepared to take advantage of this growth and these commitments. I'm looking forward to today's discussion. I'm looking forward to learning from our panels and our community on how to build a collaborative, cohesive, and comprehensive strategy that responds to the needs of our youth and to their vision, while at the same time ensuring that our young people are on a path to opportunity. We hope this morning's discussion will amplify on the sense of urgency and will to act now to take full advantage of the opportunities ahead of us. Now, with regard to many of the recommendations in the report, I want to acknowledge that at least from the Casey Foundation's perspective, Baltimore can point to several people and organizations that are showing the way, many of them in this room. Community-led organizations, youth-led organizations, community-based training programs, sector pipeline efforts, data and evaluation platforms, and collaborative efforts that bring together key stakeholders across the city to better align strategies, initiatives, and resources, all of which must connect to each other if we're to be successful. But speaking of the latter, and there are others, one of these is Baltimore's Promise. Baltimore's Promise is a citywide effort of cross-sector leaders, businesses, nonprofits, universities, philanthropy, hospitals, city and state government, all focused on improving outcomes for children from birth to elementary and high school on the trajectory that is cradle to career. Before I turn it over to Tommy, however, on behalf of our president, Patrick McCarthy, who is co-chair of Baltimore's Promise, along with Mark Lerner, thanks for having us be a part of this morning program, and most important, contribute and learn from the exploration that will take place today. Tommy?
Thank you, Sophie, and very special thank you to the Casey Foundation that helped to support the research that we're going to talk about today. On behalf of Elizabeth Sachs, Linda Dorak, and Brian Schefter, I want to thank you all for coming to be a part of what we all hope will be the first of many cross-sector conversations about the city's opportunity youth population. Okay, great. So who are we talking about? Sophie provided a couple of statistics, many of them that you see on the slide, and we know that Baltimore is home to one of the nation's highest populations of opportunity youth, about 18,000 or 1 in 5 young people. What are the consequences of that? From a monetary perspective, that's about $13,900 per year in lost opportunity, or over the course of a young person's lifetime, about $235,000 as a result of long-term unemployment, reliance upon government subsidies, as well as other poor outcomes such as engagement in the criminal justice system and others. But why are we here? The Metropolitan Council, the Workforce Funders Collaborative, JOTF, and Baltimore's Promise, we wanted to know more about this population beyond the simple statistics that we just shared. We wanted to understand the challenges of the young people, not just from a national perspective, but in our very own city as it relates to them being successful and having the tools that they need to take advantage of opportunities that may be presented to them. We commissioned 2 white papers, one developed by Chris Seals, one developed by Marsha Kingslow, who's in the audience today. And with the support of both Casey and the Hatcher Group, we released those white papers earlier this year with our combined recommendations for what we thought we could do to really shine a light on this population, some of the challenges and opportunities that we face. And as Sophie said, there's already a tremendous amount of work that's going on in Baltimore City on behalf of this population by organizations every day, many of whom are represented today in this room, and we would be remiss not to acknowledge that. But what we're seeking to do is to not only highlight the bright spots that exist in our community already, but to really identify opportunities for greater impact, for greater collective impact on behalf of this population. So first recommendation is around expanding industry-based workforce development programs. And currently there are a number of programs that either provide solid training opportunities that may not be geared toward young people, or if there are strategies that are geared toward young people, they're not tied to the sectors where there's a demand for workers and an opportunity for growth. As always, when we talk about populations, we cannot take a cookie-cutter approach when dealing with opportunity youth and expect to have success if we're not meeting those very unique needs that this population has. We must also build on existing youth-oriented career resources. As we've said before, there are a number of assets that already exist in our community that are serving this population, but we must ask ourselves, how can we better coordinate those efforts in order to maximize our respective resources and yield better outcomes on behalf of the very population that we all want to support? How can we expand our collaborations and be citywide, not silo-based, not community-based, to really think about how we can amplify our work? There are great pockets of coordination that exist in this area, as with any area that we're talking about. Some of that coordination is organic, some of that coordination is deliberate, but how can we be both strategic and deliberate as we expand both our partnerships as well as our capacity to serve opportunity youth, I think is a fundamental question that we have to ask ourselves. But more importantly, we have to actually engage the population that we're talking about. I think oftentimes we talk to and not do with or talk with to figure out what really makes sense and what's really viable, and to have that authentic perspective to help us to really understand both the challenges and the opportunities that may be in front of us. We must also build a citywide system of data collection and sharing capacity. And, data is a huge, huge issue, something that many of us in this room grapple with. And we find ourselves asking questions like, what works? How do we know a particular training program or pathway is effective? what indeed constitutes effectiveness as we're talking about this population. What other supports may a young person be receiving? Has this young person participated in any other training programs before, and what happened or what did not happen? While Maryland does have a longitudinal data system center that collects education and workforce data on behalf of young people, some gaps remain where it's difficult for us to know whether or not those young people are engaged in other systems, say foster care, and what, if any, access to resources that young person might have that are positive or negative that can impact their ability to connect to the workforce and stay engaged in the workforce. There are conversations underway across the city to really help us to understand opportunities for more integrated data sharing across a number of sectors. We must also build a culture of evaluation, learning, and continuous improvement, which begs the question, how can we use that data, whatever data we have, whether it's integrated or not, to both gauge and also improve our progress? And that also means learning from the mistakes that we make. Everything's not going to always be perfect and work out the way that we anticipate, and there's almost always an opportunity to learn from the things that don't work if we're honest about what we're seeing. We must expand funding opportunities to connect youth to sector-based training opportunities. This isn't always about new money, but how can we effectively leverage investments towards meaningful training and placement opportunities for young people? Next, we have to figure out a way to develop interventions to address basic reading and math needs. 7th grade reading, 5th grade math levels are not going to help our young people to be competitive. Initial research done by our colleague from the Strategic Thinking for Social Change found that there are roughly 50 organizations across the city providing a range of education supports ranging from adult basic education to GED. Only 4 of them are currently receiving state or federal resources to provide those training programs on the ground, and the capacity varies from organization to organization. But how can we have a systemic, coordinated approach to make sure that as we're attempting to connect young people to training and placement opportunities, they can meet those basic skill levels to not only get jobs, but to advance in those jobs? Speaking of employers, employer engagement is critical. What works best for engaging employers? Maybe we should actually ask employers. Today, as part of our discussion, we'll have employers be a part of our panel to give us a perspective from at least one sector that will give us a sense as to what they think works in terms of engagement with youth. Finally, we must collaborate with MOED to help them to both assess and enhance its programs. And we're very excited to have MOED's leadership in this area, and we're looking forward to doing whatever we can to help Jason and his team strengthen their ability to provide services and supports to this opportunity youth population. So what do we think is needed? Well, the usual suspects, everything from leadership to expanded collaboration, but also an honest and fresh look at what we're currently doing and telling the truth about where we're seeing positive outcomes and traction and where we're not. But most importantly, it's the need to not lose focus on this population. This population has to remain front of mind for all of us as we're thinking about ways to coordinate our budgetary and strategic priorities and related policies. So today's discussion, as I said, we hope will be the first of many to help us to think about how to move from the recommendations that were up on the slides, that are on the papers, that are on the thumb drives that hopefully you all received. But, we want to be able to take those recommendations and to put them into action. And so that's where today's conversation comes into play. First, we'll have a panel discussion to help provide more perspectives from nationally, from other cities, but also from here in Baltimore, and a youth perspective as well. And then secondly, we hope to engage all of you in a meaningful conversation to understand how we can both collectively and creatively make that transition to action, and to find out from you how you think you can support that work from your perspectives. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Jason Perkins-Cohen, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Employment Development.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Actually, if I could just have the panel come on up. Y'all don't want to leave me hanging. That's how you get some nasty questions. Just joking. very honored to be part of this event, and particularly honored to be part of moderating the panel. This is a big deal. We've got some experts in the room, national experts, local experts, and we only have a relatively short time together. So to make the most of our time, here's how we're going to do it. One is you're not going to hear a lot from me. No applause necessary. And then we're going to focus on the two national experts, rather that you all have an agenda in your package and their bios. So we're going to assume that you have had a moment to read those bios. I'm going to ask our two national experts just to take 2 minutes to tell us a little bit about what your organization does. We're going to stick on the national conversation for just a short time. We haven't forgotten the locals, and then we'll turn to the local folks from that. So kicking it off, Marty and Renita, if one of you wants to take just 2 minutes and talk a little bit about what your program does, and we'll move from there.
That's right. I'm just going to stand up just so I can see some of the folks in the back as well. My name is Marty Malloy. I'm also pinch hitting today for Simran Sidhu, who's my executive director. I'm with Youth Build Philadelphia Charter School. Youth Build in Philadelphia is a flagship of a national program, pre-apprenticeship program from the Department of Labor. Youth Build Philadelphia serves 18 to 21-year-olds who've dropped out of high school. They come back to earn their vocational certifications as well as their high school diploma. And what I think makes us really unique and where we're still figuring it out, but I think we do a pretty good job, is we stay with those students for a full second year as they get into their next steps, whether that's college, career, wherever they're going. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more. My role in the organization, I'm the Director of Vocational Programming, which gives me a very internal role to the organization, and I also serve as one of our external partnership creators, whether that was with post-secondary education, and we have some really exciting work that we're doing with our community college, as well as in Lancaster with a college called Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology, or with some of our employers through some of our sectoral work. So we have a building trades, which is what Youth Build is known for, doing full gut rehabilitation on homes, first-time low-income home buyers. We have our Child Development Associate track, which is working on early childhood education. We have our Business and Customer Service track, which is very exciting in partnership with Starbucks. And we have, our healthcare track, where we're working with SEIU up in Philadelphia, both in home health aid, nurse aid training, and EMT. So with that, I'll stop and we'll get into some of the details on some of those things.
Perfect.
All right, I'm going to use the microphone because my voice does not project. Can you guys put it on? No. Sorry. All right. That's okay. Is this better? Yeah. So my name is Renita Jain, and I am not nearly as exciting as Marty. I'm a researcher, not nearly as exciting in my day-to-day work at all. But I work for the Aspen Institute Workforce Strategies Initiative. And what that is a policy program that's based in Washington, D.C., and a major component of our work is to do applied research. So what we really are trying to do is to identify and understand strategies that help individuals that typically don't have access to the labor market build and improve their skills and also connect to good job opportunities. I would say in the last couple of years, we've kind of started moving more into this young adult unemployment space. A little bit where I think at times I personally, sometimes I'm like, I don't know anything about youth. Can we really go into this space? Are there other people that can go into this that would be better in this space? But we do know a lot about employment strategies and different workforce strategies, so we've been exploring that. We've had the opportunity to work with a couple of CBOs, traditional youth-serving CBOs and our workforce CBOs that are document their strategies and understand how they're serving young adult populations into sectoral employment strategies. So really understanding what's happening on the ground and what they're testing out and learning through that process. And then last year, we also had a chance through generous support from the Casey Foundation to field a survey of service providers. So we had about 400 service providers respond to the survey and really give us some interesting and valuable information about the types of jobs that they connect their young adult clients to, but also what they consider to be a good job opportunity for their young adult clients and what are the challenges in connecting them to those good job opportunities. So that's kind of the perspective that I can bring to the conversation today.
Terrific. So Marty, Youth Build talks a lot about being unapologetically comprehensive.
Yes.
What do you all mean by that, and why is that a good thing?
So I'm imagining that there's a number of people in here that work with young people, right? And so we know that one single path, one single thing is not going to be what works. So what Youth Build means when we talk about being unapologetically comprehensive is that we have a full range of services that we can provide a young person. And I was mentioning to someone earlier that we take some of our newest strategies and especially our trauma-informed strategies come from Dr. Ken Ginsberg, if anyone knows Dr. Ken's work. And a lot of that talks, and I'm going to do this in as brief a way as I can because the answer is unapologetically comprehensive as well, is looking at reparenting. We build an incredibly tight relationship with our young people. And we have to be, and this is my term, intrusive case managers, where we are going to get into the lives of our young people, providing them with case management, providing them with counseling services. And that comes from my instructors on the work site. It comes from our teachers. It comes from their case managers. It comes from the administration. Because as our students are coming into our program, we're making sure that they're getting the hard skills, but far more important is we're giving them the strategies that they can use and practice so that when they get into the workforce, when they get into college, that they're able to cope with the stresses that they're going to be facing. So a lot of our comprehensiveness comes from the fact that these full, what are termed wraparound services, are so insulated so that the young person can continue to practice, fail, practice, succeed, practice, fail, practice, succeed, practice, fail, until they start building those habits of work that allow them to be successful once they leave our program.
Terrific. Renita, you have studied this issue nationally. You mentioned that in your opening. I know you've spent a lot of time studying New York in particular. What programmatic elements have you found that are so vital that we need to make sure that we include in our programs here locally?
I'm gonna echo what Marty just said. Actually, I think you can't underestimate the value of support services and the need for those services. And I think this could be a little bit of preaching to the choir, and everyone knows that, but I don't think you can say it loud enough and time again, because I think you often see with funding that the support services are secondary in the funding cycle, and the workforce training and education services are predominant. So when we did the survey, we did ask folks what they thought were the most critical and essential services that were needed to help young adults connect to a good job. And by and large, what we were surprised by, not really, but somewhat, was that it was support services. It was not technical skills training services that were needed. It was the wraparound support services. Two of them that really came out strong in the survey responses, and especially in open-ended answers, we got some good stuff from that, was the need for transportation. So many people said young adults, youth really need transportation, and also that was also named as the biggest challenge for connecting them to a good job. So that was something that I think surprised us a little bit, because we knew that transportation was important, but we didn't realize the scale of the issue. The other one is the connection to a caring adult. So in our work in New York City, some of the more traditional workforce CBOs said that their aha moment when they were starting to implement their pilot projects was that they thought, okay, we can do this bridge programming, we can build this pipeline, we can bring young adult clients into our training services, and it'll be fine. They really realized the need to get them connected to a youth case manager, that connection to a caring adult who is going to be that person who they could build that trusting relationship with, and that was going to do that intrusive case management model. And I think we always kind of ask, well, there's always case managers. What's different about this youth case manager? And it's really that intrusiveness and that trust building approach. So I think if I could just provide an example, it might make more sense. But we were just on a site visit recently, and the organization connects all their young adults to a coach. And so a lot of them are finishing their high school diploma or gaining a certification in some kind of training program. But I would say 60% of them are still working while they're in this program. And so working with them and really thinking about, you're not showing up for class. Do you realize how important this high school degree is? Have you talked to your manager? Have you talked to your supervisor to tell them about what you're up to and why you need to be here and why you need to work on your schedule? I if you haven't talked to them, you need to talk to them. If you don't talk to them, then I'm going to have a conversation with them about that. So really being intrusive and on top of it, but also recognizing that like some managers are not going to be open to it and they're not going to change the schedule. So let's find a better job opportunity for you that's going to work so you can stay in this training program because you need this high school degree and also complete where you need to be. So really kind of being there and not letting go of it. And they really were describing the importance of that.
Jason, can I just touch on 3 quick things? One is the importance of educating the employers is huge. That's part of our job. So making sure that as we're finding those partnerships with employers in any sector, that we're educating them about that. And part of trauma-informed practices that from a high school perspective, and it's something that you said was, if you have a young person who falls asleep on your work site or in your class, for a lot of our young people who are, have experienced severe trauma, that's the greatest compliment that they can give you because they finally feel safe in your space. So let's use that as an indicator. Let's not bash them on the head, or I've had people spray water bottles, all this other crazy things. They've just given you an amazing compliment that finally they're safe. And so how can we build on that and use that from a trauma-informed space? And then finally, on the funding side of things, because we have maybe some funders in the room, so it's hugely important that you talked about the secondary services that sometimes don't get funded. Unrestricted funding is the single most important thing for us. It gives us our innovation space. So all of our extended vocational training programs came from unrestricted innovation funding. And it also allows some of that brick and mortar so you can have the staff that can really wrap around those services. So to anyone on the funding side, that unrestricted is huge.
Great. Renita, let's go back to you just for a second. So you gave us some good tips around programmatic funding. You touched on, you're not local, but you hit something that I know is near and dear to us around transportation and a caring adult. But I know that you've also looked at policy and systems change. As someone who's in the system and has worked a lot in policy, as many of us have, give us some of your thoughts there.
So I think on the policy level, I mean, nationally, I think there's some promise with WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, that, you know, they're making requirements for opportunities available for, they're really targeted towards serving and making opportunities available to out of school, out of work young adults. I think there might be some promise with DOL's attention and support around apprenticeships to really make that match of a youth to an employer who's going to give them a good on-the-job training experience. But I think what is also really exciting, and we're seeing happening in different localities with local funders and national funders, is the support of putting a systemic lens to the connecting youth to work. And I think that is really promising and important. I think we all know that collaboration is important, and there's probably a lot of great best practices that could be combined from the workforce space, the youth space, and the education space. And that would be the best way to serve young adults and connect them to jobs and employment. But we also know that collaboration is really hard without funding and resources that let you do it. It takes a lot of time, staff time, and dedication and planning and building those relationships and trust. So to have funders that are thinking about this work and how it needs to be done among various different actors in the systems, but also supporting that collaboration at all stages. I've been talking about supporting it during the planning phase, supporting it during the piloting and the experimentation phase, and also supporting it when they're on the ground and implementing. I mean, I think that's really important, and seeing that starting to prop up is, I think, going to be really valuable.
You were talking about collaborating with employers. Marty, you talk a lot, or Youth Build talks a lot about the way it interacts with those that it serves, avoiding intentionally referring to them as hard to serve, difficult. Talk a little bit about why that is so important and how it relates back to Renita's point about how you work with employers.
Yeah, so we have some really burgeoning, I'd say, employer relationships that have been so far very successful. Our placement rate right now for our graduates is at 89%, which I'm really proud of, but I'm just as proud of our placement rate for all of our students. So those that don't graduate from our program is 68%. So we look at all of those things. And I think the key with employers is making sure that you're training with them, just like you're training with your students and your young people, right? So right now we are working on whether in our customer service space, we have some really fantastic employers. Starbucks being chief among them, Saxby's locally in Philly. And what we're experimenting with them right now is what are the skills that you need for our young people to progress through that retail environment. The Gap, I shouldn't leave them out, is another one. And then who are those frontline supervisors and what skills do they need to understand how to best serve our young people and move them forward so that we're doing co-training. Because the employers are expert in what they do, but we shouldn't sell ourselves short when we're in the community-based organization space that we're the expert in the youth. And some of those employers who are willing to do that will come together with you. And those are 3 major employers that have been really great. In the building trades, I have an employer example of that as well, where once we invited the employer into our space and we allowed them to get to know our students, they aren't the at-risk and the hardest to serve. They fall in love with them just like we do. And they understand that they're complex and they have very similar issues that their employees are facing that didn't necessarily come from a more disadvantaged background. And so once you invite them in and bring them into that culture, that is a huge benefit. And now, they're hiring, they're staying with them. That retention level in the building trades, and this is specifically a solar installation company, has been fantastic.
Terrific. Okay, so we're going to move to the local panel in just a second. I want to give you guys one last bite from the apple. We often hear what we should be doing, and you guys have given us some great ideas about how to structure our programs and our policies. Tell us what we should not be doing, which is also equally instructive. I know, Renita, you've spent some time thinking about that.
I think that's a really hard question. I think we have some thoughts on what you should not, what doesn't work, but I don't know if there's anything definitive about it. I do say that, like, we were out last year working with some providers in the New York City space that are really trying to test out the sectoral employment strategy for disconnected youth or opportunity youth. And I think that the aha moment for a lot of them was that they really realized that they needed to change the ask that they make to employers and really change that conversation. And they were like, they said historically they've been coming at it from a charity lens, saying like, oh, can you give them this opportunity? Can you give them this chance? And they really were saying, like, we really need to start focusing on their assets and the work that we're doing and how we're preparing them for work and how they want to work and how they're ready for work, and really start changing that conversation to say that we are not asking this of you. We're providing you with something that's a really good asset and really going to be good for your workforce. And yeah, and there might be challenges at times, but there are always going to be challenges with anyone that you're working with. But how do we work together and make that happen? So I think that kind of stood out.
Marty, any mistakes youth builders made that we should avoid?
Oh, dear God. I mean, we have so many, and we continue to make them. And I think that's part of it, is just going and putting yourself out there. I have plenty of employers that aren't working and were failures. But I think for me, one of the first lessons is, not limiting, putting our perspective on what the young people need, on what an opportunity youth needs. So when we were looking at customer service, a lot of folks were saying, oh, no, it's a dead-end job. It's not living wage. It's not this. It's not that. Dude needs a job. And what we found too is when we talked to our board and ourselves, we all saw, oh, you know what? I worked as a barista at Starbucks and Borders. And in fact, so many of our board members had children and they themselves had done it. And so what's the difference? So let's not limit and put our preconceived notions on it. And then the last thing is this. Are there any employers in the room? Awesome. See, that's where we have to start. So I think the biggest mistake that we consistently made was we were getting together with conveners, with funders and other training providers, but we weren't starting with the employers. And when you're designing your program with the employer in mind, and I think it speaks to retention and everything else, she's the single most important person in this room right now. And so we have to figure out what she needs and then work and design in collaboration with her and her company.
Great. There's lots of other questions we could ask, but we're going to kick it to the locals now, and we'll open it up in just a few minutes for all of you as well. Following the same pattern, Shawnice, Darlene, and Joanne, you all could take 2 minutes about your role in this work to introduce yourselves to the audience, and then I'll ask you a couple questions and off we go.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shawnice Jackson. I am a community and youth advocate born and raised here in Baltimore City. I currently serve as a council member with the National Council of Young Leaders, We are a diverse group of current and former opportunity youth who advocate for policy change. We also advise funders and policymakers on the issues and barriers that are currently impacting low-income young people. My day job, I currently serve at a Baltimore-based nonprofit, volunteer-led nonprofit called THREAD. At THREAD, we serve young people who have been identified at the bottom 10% of their class in 3 Baltimore City high schools. We provide them with a family of caring adult volunteers who act as agents of change and who are committed to doing whatever it takes to make sure the young person succeeds for a period of 10 years. I have the esteemed pleasure of serving as the post-high school individualized services manager, where I directly case manage and advocate our population of opportunity youth.
Yeah.
Might be easier. Here we go.
Good morning. I'm Joanne Williams, and I'm the Youth Council Chair for the Baltimore Workforce Investment Board Youth Committee. And our focus is certainly to serve the youth of Baltimore in a very collaborative way, where we bring together employers and providers of services to youth. And we try to look at ways to address many of the issues that we're here to discuss today in a collaborative fashion. And my day job is with the University of Maryland Medical Center, and my role there is I lead the community engagement and workforce development strategy and initiatives.
Good morning. I'm Darlene Wan, and I'm the Director of Population Health for LifeBridge Health. And we're talking today on behalf of Sinai Hospital, one of our many hospitals within our system. One thing that I think is interesting and I'm listening to is that we have for 20-some years really had a lot of mission-based outreach. And our mission is to maintain and improve health. And now with population health here to stay, we believe, our mission is to maintain and improve health through multiple strategies, one of which has to do with outreach and partnering with communities to provide wraparound services and social support services. And to that end, there are a number of programs within the Population Health Department and connected to the Population Health Department that we do at Sinai Hospital as part of LifeBridge Health that work with opportunity youth to get them job readiness skills, to work with them on understanding and intervening in violence-related situations, and then taking them into our internal training programs to be able to get them ready to move then onto our employee program training and work readiness training. So we have a Kujichagulia Center that is a young men's sort of empowerment program, working with them to be able to understand why they need to take accountability and responsibility from a young age in our local elementary and middle schools, doing a Guys with Ties program, getting young men, and again, most of our work is focused around men, and so one of the issues we'll talk about is how we can do this for young women as well. To get them ready and responsible and understanding about some of the opportunities that are out there, and then intervening if there are violence-related issues, and redirecting and getting them the mentorship and services they need to be ready for our employment program, VSP, and be able to go and get the training they need and then get reemployed back into our system or with other local community businesses.
Great. Shawnice, as a young Baltimore leader, tell us a little bit, the term opportunity youth, has been around a little bit, but is still relatively new. The terms we used to use or that were used in the past, things like disconnected youth. As a leader in Baltimore, why is the term opportunity youth, why is it important to talk about the concept of opportunities looking forward?
Absolutely. So I think it's really important that we really talk about young people from a positive opportunity perspective and an asset-based approach. So really talking about what young people have to offer as opposed to what they don't have at the current time. So although a young person might currently be without a job, they are still with pride and with dignity as a job seeker. So being a first-generation college student, I was born to, teenage parents. Neither of them really commenced past 8th grade, and I really saw, education as my pathway to opportunity. I really worked really hard, but I still had to face a lot of barriers, really navigating the high school arena. So when I dropped out of college right before the start of my senior year, I wasn't looking at myself as a disconnected youth. I was looking at myself as someone who was seeking an opportunity and, really looking for, that door that would allow myself to better myself as well as my future. So I feel really honored that, better came in the form for me as an AmeriCorps program based here in Maryland called Public Allies Maryland. And I also think that it's important to, really change the perception and the popular narrative of who these young people are. I feel like the term disconnected really has a negative connotation to it. And I feel like using the term opportunity youth really reflects two twin facts about this population, which are young people are actively seeking opportunities, and young people also offer a huge opportunity to our nation and our communities if we're willing to invest in them.
Thank you for sharing that. Darlene, from your perspective as an employer, talk about the opportunities that you've seen as an employer through your work at the center in terms of what the youth bring.
Well, I think the youth bring, presenting youth with opportunity is really the most important thing. I think a lot of times Sinai Hospital is located in the Park Heights community, not that far from Sandtown Winchester and all the violence related issues. We have quite a lot of violence in our neighborhood. And part of the work that we do through our Kujichagulia Center is connecting with the Safe Streets program that is operating in Park Heights and making sure that as part of the cohort of folks that we're addressing as they come in to the emergency department as a result of trauma-related incidents, that we have a mentorship program, a violence intervention program as part of the Kujichagulia Center to help these young men be able to understand, let's not retaliate, let's give you the services that you need so that you can get gainfully employed and start talking about jobs and about careers. For us, it's interesting because we started out really looking to try to provide careers around, a lot of the supportive services in the hospital system. We knew what we had. And what we found as we've had a number of different young men go through this program, we have 5 who are currently moving into different positions within our hospital and 1 within the community, that they are really looking to do more, and they want to be able to go back and do more education, to be able to go on to things beyond some of the entry-level positions into things like working as RNs. We've also worked with some of the community organizations, with the Pimlico Business Association. One of our current folks who's in the program is going to be working part-time at one of the retail operations run by somebody who is involved in the Pimlico Business Association. And that gives us just something else to be able to offer young people. I think for us, we know we can give them jobs connected in our hospital, and there are certain types of jobs there. We're always looking to expand that so that we have more for everybody that comes in, because we know that it's not a one-size-fits-all. We know we need to be able to provide all of those levels of opportunity. And one thing I think I'll mention as I segue over to Joanne is, we have both been sitting together, and I'm going to put on my glasses so I make sure I mention everybody, on the Baltimore Population Health Workforce Collaborative. And this is an opportunity that has been provided to us through the Maryland regulatory group, the HSCRC, for us to get funding. We have to provide some matching funds as a group to be able to provide jobs in in areas that it's been a challenge to be able to help the community. And Park Heights is one of those areas. There are a number of areas. And so together, rather than going as a separate set of hospitals who were eligible to partner with community organizations, we came around the table with a very short period of time to do this. We had Johns Hopkins Hospital, Johns Hopkins Bayview, LifeBridge Health Sinai Hospital, MedStar Franklin Square Medical Center, MedStar Good Samaritan Hospital, MedStar Harbor Hospital, MedStar Union Memorial Hospital, the University of Maryland Medical Center at University Center, and the University of Maryland Midtown Campus, along with BAC, the Baltimore Alliance for Careers in Healthcare, the Baltimore Area Health Education Center, Bon Secours Community Works Programs, Builds Turnaround Tuesday, the Center for Urban Families, the Community College of Baltimore County, Mission Peer Recovery Training, and Penn North, to submit an application to be able to provide a number of new jobs. This is not filling old jobs that were there. This is new jobs within our hospital systems that have the support and training in place so that folks can move into these jobs and be successful. And we are very hopeful that in the next few weeks, we will get some positive feedback and good news that we will be able to continue on. This is meant to begin July 1st, and we're really excited about it.
Absolutely. Just to piggyback on what you're saying, collaboration is key. We certainly, it takes a village. And I have to say that the most important thing in terms of developing relationships, I found what Marty said about reparenting being a huge part of the strategy that we use when working with young people. We don't call it that, but it really, that is what it is. And it makes a huge difference when you can connect in a very personal way with an individual that is coming to work with you, and they get the sense and the understanding that you care about them beyond just the employee relationship. So we have each individual who comes to us attached to a career coach, and that career coach provides a lot of that reparenting that you talked about. Very similar to Sinai, the University of Maryland has, as part of its strategy to build its workforce, we have a program that's designed specifically for youth. And there are various initiatives within that program. One that is specifically designed for kids who have disabilities called Project Surge. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. It is a wonderful program. We just had our graduation yesterday. We have a school at the medical center where we teach young people who are not diploma seeking but certificate seeking, and they have an opportunity to be with us for 2 years, work, learn a job, and then they're employed with us. It was very interesting to see the parents talk about how they were afraid to leave their kids in this big old hospital, not knowing how people would treat their babies. But when they saw that we are equipped to do that work, that's what we do, and that's what the reparenting is all about, is we connect, build relationships, and fill jobs at the same time.
Thanks so much. I just want to pick up on one point, and I know you know it well, the career coaching concept.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the term almost speaks for itself, but tell us exactly what that means. What does a career coach do on a day-to-day basis, and how is that role, or why is that role so important to help?
Oh, absolutely. The career coach is really with us to help individuals coming in identify barriers that might exist that would lead, we're trying to lead them to success. And our whole focus is to figure out, is it child care? Parent, do you have to take care of a parent? Transportation, clothing, are you homeless? There are so many different barriers that young people and adults come to us with. We find that the career coach is able to help that individual navigate those concerns effectively so that they can maintain work. Because it's hard to focus on work when you have all these other issues that you're stressed with and, not economically in a position to address them with ease. It's very easy to call somebody to come and take care of your child if you have money, but if you don't, that's another story. So that career coach helps that individual to navigate those circumstances.
Thanks so much. And is the coach employed by the hospital or employed by an external organization?
Nope, the coach is employed by the hospital, and they help each individual with identifying, first, as I said, the barriers, then an individual development plan. So they come up with a plan for, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? They might start out in housekeeping, food services, but have a desire to do much more. And that coach is the person who keeps them on task. So when they feel like falling off, she'll, make sure that she'll find them, first of all, because generally they stay away when they're falling off. So she or he'll find them and bring them back home and start over again.
Thanks so much. All right, Shawnice, you have been very involved in the National Council of Young Leaders, and they have specific policy recommendations. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those key recommendations? That'd be great.
Sure. So we have a policy document called Recommendations to Increase the Opportunity and Decrease Poverty in America. And we have 6 immediate recommendations that we have found have been really helpful and allowed a majority of our members to overcome barriers. They are expanding comprehensive programs. So there are, like we mentioned, a lot of awesome organizations already doing great work who have proven strategies and that are working for young people, as well as expanding national service opportunities such as AmeriCorps programs that allow young people to build their resume, to figure out who they are and where they're going, and also allowing young people to gain critical education awards to either go back to school or to be able to pay for loans if they had already started school and had to take time away. We also advocate for expanding private internships that would allow young people to learn a field as also get paid for their experiences while they're learning within the trade, as well as increasing all forms of mentoring. Young people need a caring adult, like we said, to be able to lead them and show them where they're going, and also to be able to support them as they make critical decisions as a young person. Our 5th one is protecting and expanding pathways to higher education. So making sure that every young person who wants to go to college is able to go to college and they're actually able to persevere to the finish line. Too many of our young people begin college and for barriers beyond their control, they aren't able to return. And our 6th and final recommendation is reforming the criminal justice system. So many of our youth become justice involved for really minor offenses, and it often deters young people from, having careers that provide them with dignity. And so those are our 6 primary recommendations.
Linda and Tommy, are those policy recommendations? They're on the flash drive. Okay, so everyone has those recommendations. Thanks so much. That's amazing work. So I think I just have one more question that I'm burning to ask, and then I'm going to let you guys have at it. So get your questions ready. Shawnice, we talked a lot about the role of young people actually having a voice in determining what programs would benefit them, what policies would benefit them. You just gave us some policy recommendations, which are amazing. But how do we transition and encourage youth to stand up and take a stronger leadership role, or is it just getting out of the way?
Absolutely. So I think something that's very important is we need to continue to create spaces that allow for dialogue between young people and the organizations that serve young people, and not just dialogue, but authentic relationship building so the young people as well as the service providers have an opportunity to learn from each other. I think we also need to help our young people understand the power that they hold, especially within their voice. So I mentioned I work for an organization called Thread, and we provide them with a family of mentors. And so in this family, no one person has more power or is seen as better than the other person. Everyone is really equal. And this really allows the opportunity for young people to lead the work. Young people are able to leverage their voice, and they are considered the experts in what we do. So they are the ones who are really facing the barriers. They are the ones who know what they need to overcome. So we must continue to look to and include and value the power of youth voice. I also think it's important to make sure young people understand how to advocate for themselves, how to really go out and talk to policymakers and write letters and create change and be civically engaged young people. And I also think it's really important in teaching young people to advocate for policy change because there are many systemic barriers that really prevent our young people from flourishing and thriving.
Great. Amazing. Thank you. Is there a microphone for the audience, or just stand up and there's a microphone up there? There you go. Well taken care of. Okay, so the floor is open. We've got 5 experts up here, national and local. If anyone has a question, we've got some questions. Okay, let's start.
I have a question. I just have maybe a question. First of all, I just want to thank you all. My name is Mary Alexander. I live and work in the city of Baltimore, McElderry Park. Jason and I know each other, so let me give you an example. There was an opportunity for us to be community connectors. The grant, I couldn't answer the grant. I'm not a organized organization. So I felt really bad when I couldn't answer your grant, but I have brought 2 people from the community from McElderry Park. Now the difference is in McElderry Park, the Fusion Group is giving us an opportunity to use a grant. I was able to answer that grant because they're going to help me with the fiscal part. I'm not organized to handle the fiscal part. I couldn't answer the taxes part, but I know what I know. And one thing that I wanted to hear was that when you started reaching out and saying who were your partners, you didn't mention the parents, you didn't mention us, because we're not organized. So I go to PCAT meetings, I go to PTA meetings, I got grandchildren in the school, and let me give you an example. 2013, they know the 21st century was coming along to build new school buildings. So I said in 2015, what are you doing? What's your strategy to make sure that you can hire the young people? The strategy wasn't in place, and I was really angry with them because you had 3 years to get that together. So then I asked the commissioners, what are you doing to make sure that part of that MOU said that you were going to have the young people from the Mervos, the Carvers, the West Side Skills Centers ready to take those jobs, and they had none. That's frustrating as a parent. So sometimes we do get a little angry because we can't frame it because we still here in our young people's lives. We just know that once we did our best to try to get them to high school diplomas, there still was something missing beyond that. And they sitting here listening to you all talk about them, and they're going like, oh my God, they just don't still understand us. So there's many layers to that onion, but you don't have the parents who come to these meetings really still involved. I'm here. So I want to thank the Fusion Group for giving me the training, sticking with me. They even created an opportunity for me to come and learn how to write a grant. And then they took my grant and they helped my grant. And they gave me to the last possible minute and say, Murray, I'm still going to work with you. They held my hand when I needed to be held. But sometimes you all drop the ball because as organizations, you tell me to do something when it doesn't quite meet your standard. You have no strategy to help me. So now in McElderry Park, we have a lunch program for 49 days, and all we're going to do is feed the children one nourishing meal. So we got a lunch and literacy component that I want to thank those people for at least giving me the idea. Even if I didn't get the grant yet, hint, hint, for those of you that can make sure my grant get answered. It might not have been the best answered grant, but still, guess what I'm going to see there? Not just the children, I'm going to see the families. And now from the families, the Banner neighborhood has helped me learn how I need to look at that data. We are here trying our absolute best. I'm just loving this young lady here, and I need to speak to you afterwards because I got people who are willing to go on the ground, put leather to the boots to the ground, go in the neighborhoods because we don't have to draw them out. We already know who they are. Please help us in McElderry Park. If you have a job, you have any way of helping us, we are here and we are trying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. No, I'm just being sincere. This gentleman there, and then there's a.
Hi, I'm Joshua Harrell with New Pathways. We talked about intrusive case management and caring adult relationships. I wondered if there's any evidence on caseload numbers for case managers that are most effective.
We ask that all the time. I think it varies. It really varies on the organization and the funding that they have. I've seen some that they have about 30 to 40 youth on their caseload at the same time. I have seen some where there's a cohort that are going in through a training program. There might be 15 to 18 youth in that training program, and that's the caseload that they're dealing with. I think those that have a larger caseload, there's a differing in need too. So some of the young adults have graduated from the program and are in works that are working with them in the retention piece of it, which is also still important, the key aspect of their work, but it's not so much of the daily, are you coming into class today? Are you coming to this training program?
And I would only just add that with our organization, between we're the 2 years, we have about 400 or so young people that we're serving. Every single staff member, from our executive director, our fiscal director, everybody on down, has students that they regularly coach and meet with. And so we share that. Now we have designated case managers who are there as a resource then for some of the staff, and they have loads of, oh good Lord, I can't do the math that fast. That's why I'm a nonprofit. But it is a full organizational effort.
I didn't say that, but yes, I've seen that work really well. And I think when it does work really well, it's when everyone thinks of this as a piece of their job, not just that's this person's job.
Nobody's doing it.
Great. Question back there, and then right there.
I just had a real simple request, really, and to follow up on the comments of the lady from McElderry Park. It would be helpful to have a list of all the participants here today with their contact info, because we would be delighted. We're a social enterprise who does workforce development, and we would be delighted to work with you on job placements. So, but it would be nice to get that contact info if that would be possible.
Let's go there, and then right over there, and then we'll go.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Johnson with the Baltimore Cash Campaign. We do free tax preparation, financial coaching, and financial education. And my question for the panel, we've begun discussions here locally recently about how to engage municipal government as well as other nonprofits around sort of a citywide strategy around financial inclusion and how we embed that within all city systems. And so I know Philadelphia is really known for the prosperity centers. They're sort of a big national model of how people can get access to credit, budgeting, financial education, and all kinds of different things. So I was wondering if you had connected with them at all as youth are getting into employment. And I'm also curious about your thoughts around embedding financial education as well as consumer protection. We know that people's credit often is really messed up, as well as back tax issues and sort of how that relates to people advancing once they actually get a job. So I'm wondering if you can speak to any best practices or programmatically how that's embedded in, because we know that getting a job is really important, but a lot of people lose jobs because of financial stress or not having the right sort of wraparound services that include that financial piece to keep them connected and keep them moving forward.
That certainly has been embedded in all of the programs that we have that serve not only youth, but serve adults. And the Baltimore Cash Campaign provides a service for us. So we found it to be extremely helpful in, helping people to better understand the importance of predatory lending practices and knowing what that looks like and how to avoid it, as well as basic budgeting and finance.
Great. There's a question there.
Hi, my name is Renata Tanks. I'm with Baltimore City Public Schools, and I'm one of the coordinators for Multiple Pathways. We recently opened up the Re-Engagement Center. It was on the news, where we bring back students that are opportunity students, and we have seen approximately, what are we approaching, almost 500. And shockingly, they're coming through our doors, and it's May. That's what we're getting, a large number of students coming through our doors now. What I'm finding, though, is we have resources currently that we're working with and different partners, but when it comes to work, almost, I would say 70% of our students are saying, we need work, we need work. And we know we have some partners, but really being able to connect our students and being strategic about it. I believe the individual that was up there speaking, she was saying that, we have to be strategic about it. And we are, as far as the wraparound services, as far as finding jobs, I just would like to know how we can be strategic with working with all of the different offices, because many of you were saying we work with students that have dropped out and have done this. Well, our goal is to bring them back and get them back on track. So how can we communicate to really get a lot of those students back in school? We had a large number, I like it. It was a good number of students that we brought back that were able to actually get their high school diploma this year. And it could have been so much more. We just really need to connect and be able to have those resources and know where to go and have you all know about us, because we are new, to send them our way. That's just my thought.
So I would like to actually sort of respond to that and ask a question also. One of the things I think I'm hearing in the work that I've been doing in population health, and so I'm focusing around the healthcare sector, but it really applies to everybody, is that everybody's trying really hard to do really good things. And we spend a lot of time working furiously in our silos, wanting to do more, and ending up not making as much of a difference as we could. And through all good intentions, we just are not getting where we need to be. And so I'll just give you a quick story. We had a meeting last week with the Baltimore City Health Department, and they called all of the hospitals in to say, we nearly need to reinvigorate our local health improvement council. It's an LHIC. And we sat and brainstormed together, again, about what things we needed to do to provide and address the issues around improving health care. And of course, one of the largest areas is all around multiple social determinants of health, making sure there's supportive housing, making sure kids get education, making sure people have jobs, because until they have all those things, they can't get around to dealing with, I need to make sure I'm healthy and my family is healthy. Those are the basic needs that have to be met before people are even able to engage in thinking about their healthcare concerns, unless they are incredibly acute at the moment. But chronic conditions, for example, or preventive measures, not forefront in somebody's mind if they're trying to get meals on the table, a job, and that sort of thing. And we all talked about things we could do. And one of the things we talked about is working with our local schools. And I had said that what was really great was, we are trying to engage, and we've tried a number of ways to do it. But one of the difficulties we've found with our elementary and middle schools and even high schools is that principals don't always stay in the same school within the city health system. And so once you develop a relationship with a principal and you think, great, we've got this cool program, we're going to get folks in here, we're going to tell the kids about some options they have for healthcare or other, anchor institutions that have opportunities, and the program kind of maybe falls away. And some of that may also be due to folks, on our side who are in charge of the program. But ultimately, what could we do as a city to talk about the connection between health, education, jobs, housing, supportive services at a citywide level, that we're not depending on the individual outreach programs of one, well-intentioned set of folks in a neighborhood. And so I just think this opportunity with all of us here is that option for us to be able to now make these connections and move forward on kind of a bigger scale. And so I just want to say thanks for bringing everybody here today, and having those connections and understanding who's here is going to be key to us being able to move forward in a bigger way.
Great. And I just have to say one.
What?
Oh, no, you should go.
Okay, it was just so on time that you're asking that question, because I just left the youth council meeting this morning and we were talking about that very thing. There are lots of services out here in the city and people don't know about them, and how do we get the word out is the question. So I'd like to invite you to be a part of that group with the youth council to have some discussion about and I'll put you to work on a committee that is working on that particular initiative, our systems initiative. So let's talk after the meeting. Thank you.
The only thing I wanted to say is I actually want to challenge us, because I actually feel like, yes, it's the information, but it's also us as individuals in organizations, and we spend a lot of time looking at our own navel and our own organizations and thinking about what should we do as an organization, and then coming up with a strategy as what our individual organizations should do, and then we go out and implement that strategy, and we might even do a good job with it, but it's not connected. And so we have to find a different way, whether it's forums like this, and we have to go a lot deeper to find out how do we really partner, not just say it, not just list it, but really partner with one another so we're making the most of those resources. So let me go. There's a lot of hands suddenly, and I don't have a lot of time, do I? What do I got?
I have another opportunity.
Yeah, we're going to do the community connection in just a second. So let me just go 1, 2, 3, and then I think I have to stop and turn it over to Danielle. So Lynn, and then the young lady here, and then the young lady there.
Good morning, Lynn Farrow from Goodwill Industries of the Chesapeake. So to the young lady from the school system and to everyone else in the room, anyone, anywhere in the Baltimore region can come to Goodwill Industries at 222 East Redwood Street Monday through Friday and enroll in one of our programs and get placed in a job, not just with Goodwill, but we have lots of community partners, some of whom may be in the room. We provide the case management services and job placement and job readiness services. But Marty, I have a question for you. Young people who come to you who are not yet prepared to start your high school curriculum,
Okay.
can you just talk about how you help them address those barriers?
Yeah, so the only thing that we screen for is educational motivation. So that's it. And we have a long, rigorous process. It's more art than science. But it starts with our applications open up in January, usually of any given year, and we take applications. They go through a process of learning our climate and our culture. But at no point of those screeners, it's just, did you come, did you not come? Are you self-selecting out? Through that process. There's no lottery or anything else like that. And then all of those students that have still made it through whatever application process are invited to something that we call mental toughness training. And part of Youth Build nationally are mental toughness trainings, and so we do a mental toughness training, which is, again, just sort of a deeper dive into what our expectations are and our core values and everything else that we do. And students sort of self-select out through there, but a lot of that is around, making sure that they're showing up on time and prepared and everything else, and then we take it from there. So we have students that are reading on a first grade level, and we have students that are reading above a 12th grade level and everything in between.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick question for the panelists and for the people in the room. First of all, thank you for the work that you're all doing. In my job, I work with employers to help improve their recruiting practices of opportunity youth. And I was just being really curious to get some advice from all of you about how do we reach opportunity youth, right? So all of the employers that I'm working with, they're like, great, where are they? Where do we find them? How do I connect with them? What organization do I go to? Who do I talk to? So from all of you who are in the community and are doing this work, what advice would you give me in my work?
I think that we can't be afraid to go where the young people are. So definitely doing community outreach. I remember when I was seeking, opportunities for an apprenticeship or an internship, there was nothing around like in my neighborhood. I had to actively go online and look for something, but a lot of people don't know what those search terms are or how to determine a good opportunity from a bad opportunity. I also think it's really important to use social media. Young people are on social media. They are always on their phones, and I think having a robust social media strategy is an awesome way to reach young people as well.
Thank you.
You get it. Came here, you connect. I'm sure there's folks that'll connect to you right after this. So.
I think also an important thing to keep in mind is that you're not doing a service to the employer or the young person if it's not the right fit.
Right.
If it's not the right match. So kind of keep that in mind. So even if there's employers out there that say like, I'll take an opportunity youth and I'll hire them, like, what are their workplace practices in their environment? Is that really the right fit? Because we know there's a lot of employers out there that aren't doing anything illegal, but they're kind of ugly, right? They're not doing things that are really that great. They're not offering solid hours and telling you like there's no guarantee of what your hours are going to be or what your schedule is going to be or even supervision on the job. So kind of also just taking that other lens of also thinking about who the employer is and is that the right fit for the opportunity youth that you'd be referring them to.
Last question for this session, then we go to another.
It's actually not a question. I'm not, but I'm just saying, when y'all work with youth that are between the, working ages, 16 maybe and up, and they come to you and they tell you they need money or whatever, like I need a job. You gotta, for me being a city child, you gotta, and I was with you first, and I'm trying to make sure I say this as clear as possible. Like even at certain times, I felt like if you can give a child an opportunity over a job that will elevate their life way better than putting them in a workforce. And always make sure when you talk to children that you tell them to keep their mind free. And I'm not like against what you guys are doing. I do get the disconnection, but that's where the connection is. That's going to, like send them to it's just a whole different level. I'm tried to fight against the system, tried to work within the system. And I still fell victim to the system. Like, it's not, if I had my mother, I'd be way worse off. Like, I got a caring mother, so that's just, fail wasn't an option for me, I guess, like on my face. But I'm just saying, like, when you talk to 15, 16-year-olds, some of them want it because they want shoes. Some of them want the money right now. Like, you feel me? They still got a stable enough, even if it's not mentally stable in their house environment. And where you can be the one to tell them, you can see past the trees, because some of them do want to just go get the job for the quick money. They're going to go hit the block for the quick money. I'm just saying, like, it's different. You got to look at the child you're talking to, because some of them are like, actually 90% of them are like me, and they want to see past just, let me get a job, let me get a house, let me get a car, and that's life. That's not life. And I want people to actually teach them what life is, which you guys are doing, is giving back. I don't know if y'all see it that way, but that's like, yeah. So even though I fully don't see things like everybody in the room, I do see where you're coming from, and I think it's beautiful. And just teach them that you could be like me too. Maybe they don't see that, Just talk to them, because you never know who you're actually sitting in front of. You don't never know what they know. Some of them want jobs when they should be hounding in on singing or, or their craft, being a scientist, something like that, and they want to go work for, what's not worth it. Teach them what's worth it. I know people that do intern that went through interning for no money and got to the level where they need to be. So teach them that it's not about the money. I keep hearing job, job, job. And I'm like, I don't know what y'all mean by it exactly. I'm not going to assume anything. I'm just saying that sometimes it should be different opportunities for the youth in the city to go through stuff where you teach them that you don't get money for that, but what's the outcome after that is way better than that quick buck right there. And you'll get them thinking differently, and then you will be that light that help them function with their children differently. I got a lot of friends who my age and their moms weren't like my mom. And now they're like my mom. You get what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, and the next generation is going to be like me. Better, like, let me help more people, not just be a selfish person. So that's what I was saying.
I just wanted to make a brief response to that. And one thing I'll say is through VSP and through the Kujichagulia Center at Sinai Hospital, we actually recognize that there's a real struggle between, sort of that instant money gratification and getting the skill set that you need to be truly successful. And so one of the ways in which we have worked with that is to be able to provide a stipend. So during the training period, it's actually a paid internship. Now, it's not enormous amounts of money, but it certainly is enough money to be incentivized to feel like, okay, I've got something to meet my basic need of having some kind of financial wherewithal. And at the same time, I'm headed towards a job or a career, whichever is the right thing, through this program, which is a series of case management opportunities, program training, and then eventually job readiness and job training. So that is a continuing issue, and I think that's something that more we can talk about and how we can do that better.
I think that was
It's the way they handle the money too. Make sure y'all teaching financial stability, literacy, because we get money go. We don't.
Right.
We don't know how to keep it. It's the problem. Not knowing how to keep the money is the problem. Always gonna be the problem.
Okay, so we're going to keep the conversation going. We've got to end the panel, but we're not done. We're going to turn it over to Danielle. Please join me in thanking the.
Oh wow, this is not tall people friendly, so I'm gonna. Not how you did that, Jason. All right, y'all. I'm gonna get you to stand up for just a quick second because I know that you all have been sitting for a very long time. As you stand and stretch a little bit, find the yellow sheet that each of you has. Yellow sheet. All right. All right, great. Okay, so everybody can sit. Look, I see you still stretching, right? All right, awesome. So this next, for the remainder of time, we have a little bit of time left. And during this time, what we want to do is talk about action, application a little bit. And we're going to talk with each other. So the purpose of, presenting this research, actually making this type of research available, and also having this conversation, our hope is that this information doesn't sit on a shelf, but we are actually all we're thinking critically about what does this mean for how we need to work within our organizations, within our communities, within our families, and also what does this mean for how we need to work together. I think one resounding theme today was really around the importance of collaboration. None of us individually are the solution, rather all of us collectively have a piece. We can think collectively in terms of offering a piece to that solution and working together. Also, your comment, I think, I couldn't remember your name, but I thought that your comment I really appreciated because it actually grounded us, hopefully it grounded us all in the reality that all of this work is really about supporting young people to stand in their purpose, because ultimately if they're standing in their purpose and they're equipped with that, or if they're equipped to actually work in line with their larger vision for themselves and where they want to go, the outcomes are going to be so much greater. I also encourage all of us in this room to think in that same way as people who are working in service of young people in different capacities, whether you're in direct service or a funder or a policymaker. Also for you, if you are working in line with your purpose, what you're going to offer to this work and also those young people in the communities that we're serving, it's just going to be on a whole different level, right? So in that spirit, I'm going to ask you to go through a quick activity. We have this yellow sheet that has 2 questions, very simple questions. So one, what ideas do you have for actions that you or your organization could take to increase opportunities for youth and young adults? I'm also going to ask you to, in addition to that question, expand that a little bit to also think like, what can we do collectively or in partnership with each other more effectively, applying the information and the discussion that we had today. The second question is about who are you interested in connecting with and working with on these issues. So you have a very diverse room. This is an incredibly diverse room looking around. Again, you have government folks, policy folks, community leaders, practitioners, all in the same room. And what I'm always struck by is that when we all get in the room, even though we're working on the same issues from different angles, everybody is always in a rush to connect with each other. And I'm always amazed at who doesn't know each other or who is not working together. So name here, like who else do you think you need to work with on, around the solution that you're proposing? So it could be around, as a practitioner, exploring different approaches. Maybe you want to explore how to work more intentionally with young people and community members to think differently about your program design or how you're delivering services. Or maybe if you're on the research side of things, how do we build upon the learnings that were shared today or deepen learning opportunities, policies, system change for our government folks and our advocates, national contacts? What other information might you share with us locally as we're thinking through these issues? And then community leaders, how do we also support the capacity of community leaders and young people in our city to continue to bring their best voices into this dialogue? So those are just a few examples. So what I'm going to ask you to do, you can turn your chairs. You're actually grouped in 4s. And if you want to mix it up a little bit, I see a few people who are sitting around folks that they already know. So if you already know each other, you might want to switch that up a bit. But just turn around in groups of 4. You can also expand those circles, work through these questions. Fill out the sheet, and then what we're going to do with the last couple of minutes that we have together is just hear a few of the ideas that come through the room. Is that okay? Everybody good? Any questions about the instructions? We're good? Okay. All right. How much time do we have?